Hello, Janesville, and welcome back to Park Place Views, the monthly program that aims to keep Janesville residents informed by highlighting the people, places, and partners of the City of Janesville. As always, this program is brought to you by the City of Janesville and JATV Media Services. I'm your host, Amanda Gilbert, the Communications Specialist in the City Manager's Office. In last month's episode, we sat down with Susie Baldwin, the Education and Outreach Director for the Janesville Performing Arts Center, where we talked about the 2024-2025 season lineup and all the programs and classes JPAC offers. Today, I'm so excited to be joined by the Assistant to the City Manager and former host of Park Place Views, Nick Faust from the City Manager's Office. Nick oversees the Manager's Initiatives Group, which includes supervising my role, managing strategic communications, and the city's strategic planning and decision-making efforts. It's going to be a very fun episode, but before we jump in, a little bit more about the Assistant to the City Manager. Nick stepped into the Assistant to the City Manager role in June 2023, where prior to that, he was the Communications Specialist. Before joining the city, Nick was an administrative intern for the city of Burlington, Wisconsin, while earning his master's in public administration from Northern Illinois University. He also holds a bachelor's in public administration from the University of Wisconsin-Green Bay. Thank you so much for joining us today, Nick. Welcome back to the program.
Thank you, Amanda. It's a pleasure. Pleasure to be here with you and a pleasure to be back in the old digs here for Park Place Views.
Is it so weird to be sitting in the other chair this time around?
Yeah, well, I hate to give our viewers a peek behind the curtain, but our guests do not get prompters, so this is a little foreign for me. I'm used to that crutch. Believe it or not, I relied on that prompter a little heavy, but it's a meta moment for sure.
Well, we'll take it easy on you, especially to start things off. Why don't you just tell us about yourself?
Well, you did an excellent job, Amanda. But as you said, I've been with the city for 3.5 years. It was my first kind of career role after graduate school. Started in the comms role before just about a year ago taking the assistant to the city manager role. But it's been a very fast 3.5 years here with Janesville. I love it. I absolutely love the community. I live here now. I enjoy being a part of the town, going to all the fun events that we have here throughout the year. But now that it's summertime, really love jogging the trails, going to events like Music at the Marv, the Farmers Market, and seeing everything Wisconsin's Park Place has to offer.
You're a through and through resident now.
Oh, I'm yes, certainly glad to be here, and glad to be amongst the ranks of the residents.
Awesome. Well, in your role, it's so unique and you do so many different things, and I don't think it's one that a lot of other residents are familiar with. Do you mind giving us an overview of your day-to-day and what you do as the assistant to the city manager?
Yeah, so as you sort of described, I lead the Manager's Initiatives Group, or MIG, because we love acronyms, of course. But so I oversee or I supervise strategic communications, which you do an excellent job of, by the way. And then I also oversee strategic initiatives and projects. I have a key role in overseeing the strategic plan, which the city is currently undergoing a strategic plan update or rewrite. I also assist in the budget, the capital improvement plan. I steward the capital improvement plan, and then other sort of managerial and administrative projects that the city manager has, mainly strategic projects. But outside of that, it's just really whatever fun, dynamic things come my way, in addition to some of the regular things like city council.
You mentioned overseeing the city's strategic planning process. Can you tell us a little bit about what those efforts entail?
Yeah. So the strategic plan process is truly year-round. And that's because the strategic plan is a living document, and it's something that orients and guides the city in its mission. So really that begins right away in January. We adopt the prior year's strategic plan. We currently do a 5-year cycle, so we are under the 24 to 29 plan. But we identify goals. We have 9 major goal areas. And through those goals, we identify strategic tasks. Some of those are annual, things we do every year. Some of those are really specific to a year, so they tie in with the capital plan. So, safe and healthy communities, perhaps, for example. That's a goal area. So we might have a 25 goal that relates to squad replacements or a specific building or a specific program coming online in fire or recreation or NCS. And so we orient everything towards those tasks. And like I said, we adopt that in January. We analyze how that fits in with the capital improvement plan, which is very key and important. That actually is tied in through a database. And then throughout the year, we monitor those tasks. We have what is called a mid-year update. So coming up now in the summer, we assess where we are on strategic tasks and goals. What's changed. We track status so that we can make sure that those strategic plan items are being completed to schedule, and then we start to think through what that looks like for the next year. And so that'll be a process that takes place in the summer. Typically, it'll be a little different this year because we have a consultant in working on a new strategic plan. But then we get everything ready internally through the city council, and we move into the fall where we really fine-tune it and eventually adopt the next 5-year strat plan.
So to break it down in like a really general way of looking at it, it's basically a roadmap or a guideline that the city uses to follow different plans?
Yeah. So it is what I like to call it the roadmap. So anything and everything we do aligns in the strategic plan. And why it's so important is because, as you can imagine, as a full service municipality with over 500 employees, we do a lot of different things. And whether that's down at wastewater or in parks or over in sanitation, we just have a lot of tasks and projects going on. And so it's quite easy to see where all of that comes together. It's a kind of a difficult thing to track without a performance management thing or a tool like the strategic plan. And so it really orients us, it brings us all on the same page, it makes sure we don't lose track of initiatives, and ultimately it is that roadmap for achieving what we want to achieve as a municipal organization. So it guides us every step of the way.
And speaking of tracking, you mentioned 1.5 million steps to get from beginning to end. How do you keep track of the efforts and the progress being made towards the strategic plan?
Yeah. So one thing our strategic plan does really well is it's very task oriented. So we do have everything from number of potholes all the way up to really meta sort of larger scale goals, DEIB goals, things that are less easy to quantify, but still important to track nonetheless. So how we do that is we have a database system internally. It's married with our CIP, so I'm sure we'll talk a little more about the capital improvement plan or the CIP. But it basically creates this database where every department, division, or office that's responsible, because as a part of that strategic plan, we then task out those goals and task out those tasks to DDOs. They're able to update progress on each individual strategic plan task item. So we have an internal database that allows us to say track specific goal areas to the day, depending on when those updates are done. And we can make sure that those things are in progress, close to in progress, or in some cases, if things have changed, they can be deferred easily to that next year's plan. So that CIP database, or the Strat CIP database, I should say, is critically important for us as staff. But then we also know that it's important to illustrate this roadmap to our residents because it's their community and the things that are important to them are on our strategic plan. So we have what's called Open Janesville, so janesville.wi.gov/Open Janesville. And one of those dashboards is actually called Park Place Performs. And on that dashboard, residents can see by strategic goal area some of those tasks that are being done, and they can see updates on their progress. You could see updates on how many potholes, for example, we filled that month. But it really then illustrates that performance piece to the general public so they can better understand and better engage with the city strat plan.
That's awesome. Keeping the residents so informed and up to date while you're building and moving through the process is so important.
Yeah, it is critical because as I used to frequently say, in your seat over there, it's the residents' community. And we need to be foremost accountable to them, but then also we need to integrate them into the process. And if you're not, knowledge is power. And so if you're not providing them with the information they need to better understand the plan, better give their feedback on what's important to them, then you're not giving them the tools they need to be a part of the process. So it's imperative.
Absolutely. Shifting a little bit away from the strategic plan and tracking that progress, are there other areas that you see in your position where you perform other measurement efforts?
Yeah, that's a terrific question, transitioning into that Open Janesville platform, because we have dashboards for expenditures. We have a dashboard for our budget, so folks can actually go in and see, because while I would say the strat plan is the roadmap for us, our budget is our greatest policy document, in my opinion, because every year people think about it as a bit mundane. An annual budget gets adopted, but when it comes down to it, that's the money where your mouth is. That's what you think is important as a community, because you're assigning the funds to it. So it is, in my opinion, sort of our greatest policy document. And with that being said, something like our open budget platform allows residents to go in, break things down by fund, break things down by category, and see what we're doing and where our priorities are. Because again, when it comes to giving residents that ability to give us feedback, let us know what's important to them, they need to first understand what the budget is currently assigning our resources to. And so something like Open Budget, which is again available on that Open Janesville platform, or Open Expenditures, allows them to see just with great level of detail what the city is prioritizing, what the city is spending their money on. So that's certainly another measurement dashboard that I'd like to plug.
And another way that residents can provide feedback in different areas of things happening in Janesville is they can always go to meetings held by board groups, committees, and commissions. And you actually manage the appointment process of the committees. Can you explain why those types of groups are important and explain their role for the city?
Yeah. Well, so everybody is probably foremost familiar with the city council, 7 members elected at large, 7 residents who then get to represent their neighbors in our democratic process. And that's an extremely important job. They're at the top of the city decision-making process. But it's also just 7 folks, and it's 7 folks who are of the people, and they're not necessarily in tuned to every facet of a full-service municipality. Again, if you think about just all the different things we do, it's very complex. And so our 14 boards, committees, and commissions, also comprised of volunteers like the council, play a critical role in each of their specific sort of subject matter areas in advising the city council on things. So something like Plan Commission, for example, they get to take an in-depth dive into everything planning, everything that could come up with zoning, and those issues, and they get to become subject matter experts on that specific topic area. So they'll play a critical role then in informing the council, informing staff to some degree about matters at hand that allows our council to make the best decisions for our community. And that's not just, of course, Plan Commission. That's we have an Alcohol License Advisory Committee, all the way down to Zoning Board of Appeals, Z, all in their different roles play an equal part of importance when it comes to making good decisions.
And making good decisions, you mentioned the city council setting policies. Do other committees also have that legal authority? Yeah,
and that's also a really apt point, because I describe their role often as advisory, right? They are advising the council as the council is the policy-making body. But some of them statutorily do actually have a level of legal authority. So the council, for example, grants Alcohol License Advisory Committee, or ALAC, ALAC with the power to grant things like temporary Class B special event licenses. So if, a community event is holding an event with a beer tent, ALAC actually is prescribed some authority to hear that application and grant that. Public or police and fire commissions, the PFC, by state statute, they hire and fire police and fire chiefs, play an integral role in that process. So they're appointed by the council manager, or the city manager, I should say, but they then become the decision-making body in PFC matters. And so that's incredibly important, and that's, again, 5 volunteer members of our community who get to then play a critical role in public safety. I know just because we're at JATV, and I know Station Manager Luckett is on the Historic Commission. The Historic Commission, for example, when it comes to properties in an overlay district, has authority when it comes to renovations or something that a resident may wish to do with a property in that historic overlay district. So they do make very critical decisions often outside of just their important advisory roles.
And these volunteers who make up the committees and boards and commissions, when they apply, are there rules for who can be on the committee? How does the appointment process really look from your standpoint?
Yeah. So there's variances, of course, amongst those 14 boards. Some have residency requirements, so folks have to actually be residents. I'm the liaison to the Advisory Committee on Appointments, which is the committee on committees, as I like to say, because they play a role in that process that I'm sure we'll get into. But my committee members have to be residents. That's by ordinance. That's a rule. There are other boards like the Library Board of Trustees or Parks and Rec Advisory Committee where there's quotas. So, a certain number have to be residents, but that's certainly not always the case. We can have, patrons of the library because the Hedberg, of course, serves a wider range than just our corporate limits. We can have some of those members be non-residents. And again, that's critical because that gives us a more diverse and informed viewpoint when we're examining issues related to that specific board.
Early in the episode, you teased the CIP, or the Capital Improvement Plan. Can you tell us about that and what that work kind of entails?
Yeah. So the Capital Improvement Plan, or the CIP, which I talk frequently because it's married into our strat plan, but that's basically the roadmap in the roadmap for all of our capital assets. So that deals with our capital budget. I like to kind of simplify things to when we think about our budget. We have our operating budget, the things that keep the lights on, keep both of us paid, the things that are annual expenses. But we also have a capital budget, and that deals with the repair, maintenance, replacement of capital assets. So our bigger assets, roads, facilities, things that have a lifespan, and that we then, of course, budget out over many years in paying for that asset, which is an important equity caveat, because sometimes people like to say, well, the capital budget, that's the city borrowing things, borrowing money for big, shiny things. But what it really is an equitable way of saying, well, this road, we're putting in a road. It'll be here for 30 years. And so is it equitable to make current ratepayers, current taxpayers pay for that whole road, or is it more equitable to spread the cost of that road over years, so that then future users of that road can pay through property taxes a part of that asset. And so that's why I like to plug that when I talk about the capital budget, because I think that helps people kind of better understand the logic behind capital budgeting. But the CIP then is all of those tasks that are associated with capital budgeting. So that's its own sort of annual cycle that involves different departments, divisions, and offices with capital needs. So say they need a facility repair, or a fire station has a roof repair, for one example, or, streets. They get together, they put their capital needs to paper, and then we, and me in my role, throughout the year working with the finance office, basically process all those requests. We understand how much money we can budget or borrow for, and then assign priority to those needs and really say, what can we do with our borrowing this next year to get some of those capital items through. And that's again an evolving process. It's a 5-year like our strat plan, so we have capital items sort of on this short list through the next 5 years for when we plan to do them. But because it's tied in so well with our strategic plan, we really have this overarching view that keeps us informed of what our capital needs are going to be.
It's clear that you play a lot of different roles in your position. You have a lot of tasks and different responsibilities that you're always working on.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite part of the job?
Well, outside, of course, working with you.
Well, obviously.
And strategic communications, which I have a soft spot for given my prior role. But no, I really just enjoy the day-to-day variability in my role. You can talk to a lot of people at City Hall, and they'll tell you that, every day is something different. So being in a role where I get to do a lot of different strategic initiatives and strategic projects, it can be one thing one day and a totally next issue the next. And so I really enjoy some of that dynamic nature that comes with being in the city manager's office. Because we're a full-service municipality, I get to learn about things from wastewater lab testing all the way to a bus system, all the way to, what kind of clay goes in a landfill. And so you just really get to become a jack of all trades. And I think that's incredibly rewarding, especially throwing it back to the top of the episode, being a resident of this community. It's so cool to just be informed, and it's awesome that my job allows me to do that professionally, in addition to just being an involved member of the community.
And speaking of being informed, lastly, Nick, if people wanted some more information from you or just needed to get in contact with you or the city manager's office, how would they go about doing that?
Yes, so I'd encourage anybody, a great way to start to inform yourself is janesvillewi.gov. That's our primary source of information. All of those different departments, divisions, and offices I've been talking about have a plethora of things on that site for residents to look at, review. Even if you have a question about putting in a fence, for example, we've got a search bar that'll get you to the right place on our website. But other than that, I would encourage folks, as you do, to sign up for our press releases at janesvillewi.gov/email lists. Or just pick up the phone and give us a ring. It's often I feel like sometimes folks don't know if their issue pertains to the city, or they don't know if they should call the manager's office about this. They don't know what the recourse is. Just always give us a call. We're tremendously accessible. That's what I love about local government. You went into a bit of my educational background, but I studied governments of all levels. But what drew me to local government was the fact that we are closest to the people. We are the most accessible, in my opinion, and we play a day-to-day role in people's lives. So we welcome people to contact us and tell us about things, teach us about issues, make us aware, see what we can do. And if we don't have the answer, we have somebody on staff who has it. So just pick up and call.
Just give us a jingle.
Yes,
easy peasy. Well, awesome. Thank you so much for coming on the program today, Nick. You are always more than welcome to come swing on the program.
Yes, yeah. It feels good to be back. This is home, so thank you for having me.
Good. I definitely appreciate you taking the time to stop in and help give our viewers a look inside your role in the city manager's office. And not to get too sentimental as we close the program, but I know that I have definitely loved working with you, and I've really enjoyed getting to know you. And
yes.
I think it's been great.
Thank you, Amanda. The same goes for me. It's been a pleasure, and I love watching you succeed in this role.
Oh, thank you. And thank you also to our viewers and residents for tuning in today, and for all you do to help make Janesville a community of choice to realize life's opportunities. I invite you to stay connected with the city by following us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, signing up for emergency notifications from the JPD via the Nix app, and signing up to receive city press releases by visiting janesvillewi.gov/email lists. For Park Place Views and the City of Janesville, I'm Amanda Gilbert. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you again next month.